What's up? Welcome back to my channel, or for the first time if you're new, I'm Sylvan, and today I'm going to be reacting to the version 5.1 trailer, The Rainbow Destined to Burn. I decided to just react to the trailer, and also react to the animation they released in another video. Just felt like it was sort of unnecessary to do the whole thing, and this is really what most of you are coming for anyways, so feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video, leave a comment on your thoughts, and let's get into it.
I've had concerns for a long time. Malika's plan needs too much time, and too many things can go wrong.
Fair.
So, specifics aside, the Pyro Archon confirmed the Gnosis can resolve the crisis, but it comes at a huge price.
Oh?
This is a distress signal for the Masters of the Nightwind, so Auroron was indeed being threatened.
Huh.
Great going, Malika. We're already off to a rocky start here.
Ooh, the music.
Bring it!
God. Xylonin has such good animations.
If she's trying to finish that ancient name, there's only one place she could go.
His soul is temporarily
the
restrained
Gnosis.
by us, and it appears to have become more fragile in the process.
Ooh, new boss? Interesting. Another mechanical thing. Design-wise isn't really like anything we've seen.
I'll stall the captain while you advance.
And once you've learned the truth that the Pyro Archon Malwika would never willingly share with you, you may just find it in your heart to consider my proposal.
Oh?
We have to make the decision for her, here and now.
Ooh.
Without the Lord of the Night, without the protection of the wolves, is doomed from the start.
You presume too much. Humanity's survival is worth any price.
Okay.
Let's give him everything we've got!
Natlan must pay the price, and only Malika's death can clear the debt.
Oh.
All I wanted was to see her again.
My end will not come first, and I'm not giving up.
If I could go back, I would do whatever it took to ensure their survival. You've experienced something similar, Malwika. You should know exactly what I mean.
What? Okay. There's a lot of interesting stuff there. So, going through this more thoroughly, a person is saying here that they've had concerns for a long time, claiming that Malvika's plan needs too much time and too many things can go wrong. I'm not exactly sure who's speaking, but it might be Sitlali. I could see that. It might also just be like a random NPC, I'm not sure. But it, logically speaking, is someone who is aware of the plan, so probably one of the other heroes. But it makes sense that someone would be concerned about the plan. Without all of the details, it does sound like a very chaotic and not necessarily thought out plan, but also on the other hand, I feel like it would be strange for Malvika to set up this like 500-year plan without any real insurance or confidence that it will work. But it shows that someone is concerned, but it shows that not everyone is like 100% confident in the plan. And then we get this interesting detail, which is, I think Chaska speaking, I could be wrong. We get the interesting information that regardless of some specific details, the Pyro Archon can resolve the crisis with the Gnosis, but at some kind of huge price, which is interesting. I'd be curious what that price is. Potentially it has to do with the safety of Natlan, maybe the destruction of ancient names, or something like that. The destruction of the Sacred Flame, maybe something like that, who knows. But it seems like this might be the through line of what's going on during this update story. This idea of, is that price worth it? And then we have Sitlali here, finally seeing her model. It looks great. And we have, presumably her, basically confirming Auron's circumstances of that he was threatened, presumably into working with the Fatui. Now, the validity of that is to be seen, but it's interesting that that may be the case. Between that and a later line, it makes me curious about the nature of the Fatui and Capitano's relationship with Auroron. Like, if it is purely a threatened into subservience scenario, or if there is a tense agreement of some sort. But then we move into the part of the trailer which is showing off Xylonin, and we have her going, "Great going, Malvika, we're already off to a rocky start." Clearly she's not thrilled about this, but as we learned in the story so far, Xylonin is already someone in the know about the plan and stuff, as far as I know. So as things begin to pick up and the plan begins to go into motion, she's like, great, things are already going horribly. But clearly, it sounds like though she's annoyed, she isn't actually angry about it, she's just sort of annoyed and disappointed. And then we just see some of her combat, shows her off a bit. Her aesthetic's really fun. I really like her combat while she has her, like, skill active. And then we have the line, if she's trying to finish that ancient name, there's only one place she could go. Presumably that's the idea of creating our ancient name, because that is presumably the next thing that's going to be happening. Which, based on this scene, I don't know if that's necessarily what's going on right now, but it could be. I know that with their trailers, they like to mix up lines and visuals to confuse us. So it very much is possible this is something more late game into the story rather than the creation of our ancient name, but it also could be that. But either way, there's an acknowledgement of Movika's trying to finish our ancient name, but she went somewhere that we're not familiar with. Presumably the reason we need to find her is either Movika's doing something weird and just not telling us where she went and forcing us to figure it out through other people, or something is going wrong and we're trying to stop her for some reason, like we think there's a reason she shouldn't do it or something. But I'm not entirely sure. We'll have to see. But then we get this imagery of this darkness, this void surrounding Movika as this small sphere of light is around her, as we have glowing in her hand the pyro-gnosis. And then we have someone saying his soul is temporarily restrained by us and appears to have become more fragile in the process. The only thing I can think of this being related to is either this is just some complete misdirect and this has to do with like one of the tribe storylines or something, and this doesn't have anything to do with the main plot, or this might be talking about Auroron, and that might be the nature of how the Fatui have convinced him to help them. But I don't know, that doesn't quite sound like the way that the Fatui would go at this, at the very least how the captain would. Plus we also just don't know who he is necessarily. It could be anyone. And then they show off this new boss. I'm assuming it's a boss. And then we have someone saying that in the event that confrontation becomes inevitable, I'll stall the captain while you advance. Which is interesting. It very much is leading to the fact that there's going to be a much more direct confrontation with Capitano. And in line with that, we have it immediately cutting to Capitano as he says, once you've learned the truth that the Pyro Archon Movika would never willingly share with you, you may just find it in your heart to consider my proposal. And as it pans to Auroron, I'd assume that the captain's talking to him, presumably trying to convince him to fully, like, join them, basically, at least in this endeavor. Which is why I feel like it's less likely that they've, like, seized his soul or something, because then they wouldn't need to convince him necessarily. Although it is possible that the way that Capitano does business is along the lines of do something that guarantees submission, and then try to find a way to work more amicably with the person. I could see that, but I'm not entirely sure. We don't have enough to go off really to be sure on that. But either way, what he's talking about here is almost certainly revealing the nature of Movika's plan to Auroron, who presumably didn't know about it yet, which is interesting because that implies that there's something to Movika's plan which would potentially convince Auroron to betray Movika and work with the Fatui, which makes me curious to see the nature of what the plan really is, how Movika intends to stop the Abyss. And then we get a shot of Chaska and her sister looking down at the Fatui, which are near some kind of weird cube thing. And then we get a lot of visuals of this big fight going on. And Capitano continues saying, we have to make the decision for her here and now. Which immediately to me comes to the thought of what he was doing in the story prior, how he was essentially saying that Movika's plan has failed, it will not succeed, she should just give up and let him take care of it. And it would seem that here, he's gonna try to, by force, take matters into his own hands. And then we have almost this dialogue between Movika and Capitano. As Movika says, a land without the Lord of the Night, without the protection of the rules, is doomed from the start. As we have this imagery of this, like, dark star blooming into the sky above what looks like the arena, essentially speaking to the idea that if they sacrifice the protections they have to achieve victory, then there's no point in it. They'd be doomed from the start. Which Capitano just completely retorts, saying, you presume too much, Archon. Humanity's survival is worth any price. It doesn't matter what we have to give up, what we have to sacrifice. As long as humanity survives, it doesn't matter. Which answers a few questions about Capitano's beliefs. We then get this imagery of abyss monsters and hilichurls bursting forth from portals out of the Night Kingdom, presumably, as we see more of this fighting, at which point, once again, we have this idea of Natlan paying a price, and according to this, only Movika's death can clear that debt. There's a lot of pieces at play here that that are sort of tugging us in a lot of directions of what exactly the price Natlan must pay is. From this line, it would say that Mavica must die. From Capitano, it's any price necessary to save humanity is acceptable. Perhaps that price is Mavica's death. Losing the Archon is acceptable if you are doing it to save humanity, but it also might have some other things. Either way, the heavy price very well might be the death of the Archon. And then we see this weird, dark, abyssal star in the sky, almost black hole-ish now, distorting further. We have someone saying, all I wanted was to see her again. That very well might just be a line pulled from a random quest or something, but it could also be talking about Mavica, someone talking about her, and the fact that she's about to, like, sacrifice herself or something. We have someone saying that their end will not come first, they're not giving up. Once again, this is probably just another spliced in line from either an NPC or a character that I'm not placing the voice of, but I'm not exactly sure who's speaking here. And then we get a very interesting line from Capitano, saying, if I could go back, I would do whatever it took to ensure their survival. Go back to where? Ensure whose survival? Who's Capitano talking about? Perhaps we'll be getting some sprinkles of Capitano's backstory about his lore finally. It is hypothetically possible that he's talking hypothetical in the sense of perhaps he's saying that if he were in the shoes of, say, the Pyro Archon, and he could go back to when the plan was first set in motion 500 years ago, he would have done whatever it took to ensure their survival, where perhaps Mavica's plan is, as it sounds, a bit of a gamble, but to attempt to ensure the safety of all. Perhaps Capitano is saying that if he was in her position, he would have sacrificed whatever was needed back then 500 years ago to ensure the future of humanity, regardless of the sacrifice. I could see that being the angle, but it also could be referencing something within his own past. But then he says something interesting to end it, saying, you've experienced something similar, Mavica, which perhaps makes me think that he's referencing something in his past to emphasize a point to Mavica. Perhaps that's it. Perhaps he's trying to convince Mavica of something by referencing something in his past that if he could go back, he would have done. I could see that, but I'm not entirely sure. At which point we just see Mavica using her power, her hair going into the flaming form again, and that's where we leave it. This is an interesting trailer. It simultaneously gives us a lot and not too much, which is about right for a trailer, I'd say. What I'm getting from this very much is what I was saying at the start, that this entire portion of the story is going to be dealing with the question of what price is worth paying to save Natlan, which I'm very intrigued to see where they go with that, where characters land on what price they're willing to pay for that. And overall, I'm just really excited to see more of Natlan. So with that, I don't have too much more to say about this other than just wild speculations, so I'm going to leave it there. Feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment on your thoughts, and I hope you all have a great day, and goodbye!